Welcome back to the Own Your Good podcast. This is Dave, back again. And today I get to talk with a friend who has a really unique talent, skill, and is using it in a really interesting and fun way. So Kelly, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, I'm Kelly Williams. I'm SuperKell Creative on Instagram. And the reason why I'm on Dave's podcast is because I sort of know how to sew, and I like to dress up like superheroes and anti-heroes for children's charities.
That's so cool. For children's charity. So something like Make-A-Wish or something, I mean, it's not that.
Yes,
but...
Make-A-Wish is one of the charities that we work with. We are open to anything, really. We support elementary schools when they have their literacy nights because we support literacy. So we do free comic book day as well.
Yeah.
But we've done muscular dystrophy walks and Relay for Life for cancer research. We do support Ronald McDonald House, and so we visit the families there, and they also have a room at the hospital, so we visit that room as well, so children that are in the hospital can come and see us as well, and we do events for them. We haven't done anything in the last 7 months,
right.
but this is generally what we do. So we if there's a fundraiser that's supporting something to do with a children's charity, then we're there. So we're a 501c3 organization. The name of the organization is Heroic.
That's cool.
And we're Heroic Utah on Instagram and Facebook. And we attend for free, and we dress up like heroes or princesses or princes or whatever you want. And so we've done some wish granting parties for Make-A-Wish, and we do fundraise also for other charities. When we're at FanX, we have a booth that we choose a charity every year that we fundraise for as well.
Neat. So the group on Instagram is Heroic Utah?
Yes.
And yours is SuperKell Creative.
Right. Two L's on Kell.
Awesome. So the Instagram page, that is where you demonstrate, highlight, show off the stuff that you've been producing.
Yes, and I'm very active on Instagram. I also have a Facebook page that's the same name, but I'm not very active on Facebook.
We'll link to both of those so that people can see what's going on there. So all about superheroes, dressing up, and the production of the costumes, the outfits, the accessories to the outfits. Let's go way back. How did you get into sewing?
Okay, so I love Barbie.
Okay.
And when I was 6 years old, and I love fashion, and I love clothes. And ever since I could dress myself, I've been changing my clothes at least 3 times a day. My mother hated it always. But so always making up my own outfits. And so I wanted to do that for my Barbies as well. How I play Barbies is I would line them all up and I would change their outfits and one by one. And then I would go to the front and change them all over again. So when I was 6, I was begging for Barbie clothes, and my mom just would not justify the expense of these, because my next door neighbors were 2 sisters, and they had a mountain of Barbie clothes, and we would go over to their house and we would play Barbies. And so I wanted, because I've always had that creative bug that just had to get out of me.
Things that are matching in different designs,
absolutely,
and different patterns.
Absolutely. And I always wanted to create my own thing. And so my mom, who is a seamstress as well, she's more of a quilter, but she sewed our clothes. We always had matching outfits and all of that. And so so she taught me how to sew so that I could make my own Barbie clothes. And I raided her stash always. And so I started sewing when I was 6 years old.
Wow.
And I started sewing for myself in high school. So like I said, I was totally into fashion. And, back up a little bit. So also my parents got me for Christmas one year these fashion plates. And they were these different plastic plates that had engravings on them that you could do rubbings, and then so you could mix and match. And they even had ones where you could like do a plaid pattern and a floral pattern, but you could do pants or a blouse or a certain
cloth.
Kind of like you could make your own paper dolls.
Gotcha.
And I'm obsessed with paper dolls. I love paper dolls. But yeah, so that with the fashion, and then I discovered Elle magazine when I was like 13 or something, and so when I started in junior high, I started making my own clothes because I wasn't rich.
Yeah.
And I love cool clothes, and so I just would see something and I would be like, and I would raid my mom's stash and like find a fabric that I liked and find a pattern. She has all these old vintage patterns from the 60s and the 70s, and I would just kind of pull them apart and make them how I needed them to be. And
so modifying the collar or modifying the length or whatever.
Right. So I made my own clothes basically. Yeah. And I remember being at a youth dance one time, and there was a girl there in this very matronly looking outfit, jumper thing, and all of my friends were making fun of her because she makes her own clothes. Yeah. And she was like this Holly homemaker kind of type of person, and everyone was making fun of her, and I did not say a word because I was mortified for them to find out that I made my own clothes. And later on, of course, they found out, and they were like, "But you're cool." And so I was voted most likely to set the world's next fashion trend by my graduating class in my high school, because when I was in grade 11, which was 1987, I was wearing, we called them Nehru pants. They were high-waisted, pleated with a very low crotch. Okay. And very low ankles, very Indian inspired, in India, the country, Indian inspired. And I saw one of my girlfriend's older sisters who was super, super stylish. Yeah. She was wearing them, and I was like, ooh, I want some of those. And so I made some for myself. And I wore them first day of school, grade 11, and all the mocking. Oh, no. Poopy pants and diaper pants and all of these things. And then the next year, MC Hammer came out with Can't Touch This, and he was wearing gold ones. Yeah. And everyone came up to me and was like, "Hey, Kelly, remember those poopy pants that you used to wear? Now MC Hammer wears them." I'm like, exactly.
Ahead of the curve. Yep, I know. So I want to go back just a little bit to when you're 6. Okay. Everybody knows that, well, maybe not everybody. When you're 6, your hand-eye coordination isn't necessarily fantastic. Do you remember what the end product was as you were first sewing Barbie clothes?
My hand-eye coordination is not so great even now. Okay. So actually, it was fine.
So the product that you made, the thing that you developed for your Barbies, was satisfactory to your eye.
Well, yeah, I was 6.
But it was enough, I guess, to not make you like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore.
No, not at all. It totally inspired me because I could make whatever I wanted, and I could think of something in my head or see an outfit, and I could make that for my Barbie, which translated into when I started making my own clothes.
So the confidence was building. It was like, I'm not there yet, but I can be. I will be. Where I can do what I see in my head and produce it.
I feel like it was childhood innocence where I didn't know that I couldn't. Yeah. And it wasn't until I was much, much older, in my 40s, that I started to doubt myself and my talent. And I've had to actually build into part of my process that I get to the point where I think that I can't do anything, and I should never tell anyone that I know how to sew, and I am the worst seamstress that I've ever seen, and I can't believe that I've been sewing for over 40 years and I still can't do it. Yeah. And I get to that point where I'm at rock bottom, and then I have to just be super dramatic and then take a deep breath, pull my pants up, and just move on and do it. And I want to quit, and I cry, and usually there's blood involved, and but I have learned as I have taken on more complicated projects that's just kind of where I go, and my brain just goes there, and it's lying to me, and I know this, and I just have to have that breakdown so that I can move on and finish the project.
So do you see it as, and I don't know that it's a predictable pattern every time, but so do you see it as you start a project that might be a little bit out of your stretch, out of your league. You stretch yourself, you get into it, and somewhere in that process, you feel like, I can't do this. I'm not good. Why am I thinking that I can do this? And then you have that breakdown and explosion of emotion or whatever. Is it kind of like that? And then a day or two goes by and you're like, okay, I got this. I can do this. And you finish it up and then move on to the next thing?
Absolutely. It's actually maybe just an hour.
Okay.
And so in the past, I would just give up.
Yeah.
I can't do this. But that was when I was working for myself, and I would just put things aside. And I've been working on a Queen of Hearts costume for 5 years. Yeah. But I was making an Admiral Holdo costume, which is from Star Wars, yeah, for both myself and someone else. And the idea was that I was going to finish mine first and then make hers. And then she gave me a deadline, and I was kind of futzing around. And so I ended up putting her project in front of mine, and she wouldn't let me give up.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to finish this by the convention that you want it for. And I just wanted to cry. I had redone there's this back drape thing, mm-hmm, and I had redone it 5 times. And I just wanted to cry. And it's like this really, really flimsy jersey, like a t-shirt, sure, material.
Yeah.
And it has a big cowl. It's swoopy in the front. So there's nothing to... there's no foundation to it, you know, and then it's magic. Got like this drape thing that's supposed to hang on the back, and it's heavy, and just the architecture of the whole, yeah, thing just made me cry, and I just wanted to give up, and I couldn't, yeah, because I was doing it for someone else. And that's what taught me that, hey, this, you can, and she was like, you can do this.
Yeah.
And that's when I had come to that discovery. And that was like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So you're never too old, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, sewing for myself, and people were always so impressed with the things that I had made.
Yeah.
And, oh, you're so talented. Like, I'd been told I was talented my whole life. Mm-hmm. And so then I get to this point where I'm not talented and I don't have anything, and I'm going to throw in the towel. And, right, and because I've taken things up to another level, and I have pushed myself, and I've taken on these things that you know, when I'm in my dark place, yeah, I feel like I've bitten off more than I can chew. But really, I learned so much from that experience and made a friend. Yeah. And she connected me with all of these resources, and I learned so much in that project that so she actually had to apply to wear the costume on the blue carpet for the premiere of Rise of Skywalker, and yeah, she got in.
Wow.
And I mean, half of the costume is the person making the costume. Yeah. And the other half is the person in it doing the wig styling and the makeup and the props and everything else.
And the posture and
so,
all the character
yeah,
stuff.
like
Yeah.
If she just wore the dress, it wouldn't be anything.
Right.
So I want to give her as much credit, but what an honor for me, yeah, you know, and that just really taught me a lot. And like I said, she's become a good friend. And I mean, part of the thing about cosplay is the reason why you choose to wear a certain costume is because that character speaks to you.
Yeah.
And so she's a fan of Holdo. I'm a fan of Holdo, and we just like completely bonded, and it just was such a fantastic experience, right, and such a good growing, learning experience for me.
Yeah. Have you found that with that particular experience and costume and the struggle of the foundations of how do I make this look the way it's supposed to and have it work, have you applied that to anything sewing wise since?
Yes, actually. So the following year I made a Princess Leia costume. Mm-hmm. And when I got to that point where I wanted to give up and things were not coming together the way that I had envisioned them, and everything was taking twice as long as it normally took. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was on the phone with my husband, and he was on his way home from work, and I was just like, I'm just at that point where I feel like I can't do anything and I should never do this. And he started off by saying, well, why do you take on these projects then? and if you don't think that you can do them, then you shouldn't take on these projects. And my son in the background said, you got this, Mom. And it just clicked in my head. I remembered, you know what? This is just part of my process.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is I'm in the depths of despair. I just have to sink to the bottom of the pool so that I can push off the bottom and shoot back up. And that's totally, I'm like that in life. Like I've been like that in school, with big projects, essays, papers, things like that. And I've just discovered that that's part of my creative process is that I have to sink to the bottom in order to get that leverage to push back up.
Right. I think that's probably one of the big points of this year and of this week. I've discovered the same thing for myself, where everything is happening throughout the week, and then Saturday is sort of a finished stuff at home, and then Sunday is the break. It's the rest before the next storm comes in, and that's where I crash. That's where I don't know why I'm doing this. I know that I have an episode coming out tomorrow, but I can't do this. And so recognizing that you have a process, no matter what it is that you're interested in, you've got to identify what that process is for you so that you can get over whatever that wall is or whatever that break point is, that part where you're thinking, I can't do this, even though you know you have a track record of success. You have a history of producing something and other people complimenting you on it, knowing that that's the majority of your time, not this breakdown, right?
Right.
That is cool.
Yeah, I am so grateful that I discovered that because it's helped me so much. And I mean, I have become, in the last 5 years since I started cosplaying, my skills have just grown exponentially. I've always been able to sew a button and a buttonhole and a zipper, and I can make tailored garments are actually my specialty.
Yeah.
I love tailored garments, and I love tailoring and that sort of thing. So I don't make floofy, flouncy, princessy things. You know, I'm very straightforward with my lines and things like that. And even in the designs, like in fashion design, when I was in fashion design college and all of that, are always really clean and simple. But where was I going with that? Oh, but as I've done work for other people, it's not just my own aesthetic. And so I have had to stretch and grow, but my skills have stretched and grown twice as much as they even needed to.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that. I still Google techniques and how to do certain things. And
yeah, which you couldn't do in the 80s.
No, I had a Reader's Digest reference book, and I had another sewing book of my mom's from the 60s, you know, and then it was just kind of trial and error and figure it out.
Yeah.
So since I've discovered Google, it's lovely, and YouTube tutorials are amazing. I'm so grateful for them.
Those are great for us visual learners. So Barbie clothes, when you're little, you start getting into junior high school, you start building your own, I guess, what is the correct term? Sewing is what you're doing, but building, you're manufacturing your own clothing.
Yeah, my wardrobe.
Yeah. Was there a time where people, high school friends or maybe college friends, saw that and said, I need something like this?
Yes, actually. So when I was in grade 8, my home ec teacher had me actually helping the other students because I had more skill than she did. But it was during the 80s. It was budget cuts where the home ec teacher was actually the English teacher. She just happened to know how to sew, so she got stuck with the home ec kids.
Yeah.
And so we had to do, you know, something with buttons and something with a zipper, and it was 1985, so these big floral shirts were super in fashion, and so I made a shirt and a skirt and a pair of walking shorts, like Bermuda shorts. And I had raided my mom's stash, and she had this funky floral print sheet set.
Yeah.
And I used that for my fabric. And then I had taken this 70s shirt pattern and like cut it up and opened it all up and made it into this giant shirt. And she was so impressed that I could use such ingenuity to think to even use sheets.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's so unique. And so, yeah, I was in charge of threading the sergers. Sergers had just become a thing, and everyone was scared of it. And so I was in charge of that, just because I kind of have I'm a sewing machine
Yes,
whisperer.
there you go. Yeah.
But I just have this intuition when it comes to sewing machines, and I know how to thread them and
What could be wrong or what's stuck or
right. What's broken, what's not working, and that's just, I don't know. It's just like in my veins somewhere. I've just always known that, and I can sew on any kind of a machine. And
well, I think that's where we know that we're good at something, and sometimes it's so in us that we can't identify it. We can't explain it. We don't know how to explain it because we just do.
It's an intuition. It's just part of your head. Like it's part of you. And like, I would have never thought that it was weird to use a sheet for fabric because it's fabric.
Yeah.
You know, and then so from there on, I was, you know, the resident, can you fix my zipper? Can you fix my buttons? But when I was in grade 11 and 12, I started sewing prom dresses for other people. And I started making clothes for other people.
That had to be a lifesaver for some parents with the cost of dance dresses.
You know, so I grew up in Canada, and we have one formal.
Okay.
When we graduate, that's it. And
so these Utah dances where there's like 5 in a year.
Yeah, there's not 5 a year, and you don't start when you're a sophomore and all of those sorts of things. And I don't have any daughters, so I didn't have to go through any of that excruciating pain.
Yeah.
But I have friends who did, and I would just be like, oh my gosh. And then of course, you know, I've been doing alterations my entire life, and I'm tall and I'm thin, so I could never find anything long enough. So I was always able to just make my own stuff. Or if I would thrift, I like to thrift. And I call it upcycling, where I will find something, I'll like the fabric of it, but I don't quite like the cut of it or whatever, and take it home and rip it apart and make something new.
That is cool.
And I've been doing that my whole life as well. Even when I was a little kid, of my own stuff. Like if I didn't like the way the hem was on a skirt or something like that, like if it had a flounce, I would take it off.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of thing, and just hem it myself or whatever. So yeah, I've been sewing for my friends since high school.
Yeah. What is that like when you know you have a skill, and most of the time everybody else recognizes that you do, but like the one time with the pants where you get called out? Does that slow you down at all? Why would you wear that style? That's ugly or whatever.
It didn't. So I'm introverted by nature, and so I do not always enjoy drawing attention to myself, except when I want to. And so I would have never worn those pants if I couldn't own them.
Yeah.
And so I would never wear something if I didn't own it. And I'm not a person, like I love fashion, but I hate trends. And so I'm not a trendy person. I don't wear something just because it's in style. I wear it because it speaks to me. It's my style. And I develop my own style and my own look. And I've actually done it for other people as well. And I worked in clothing retail for a number of years, and I was always dressing people.
Yeah.
And I loved that. It was like dressing my Barbies, except grown-ups.
Yeah.
And then
and they're paying for it.
And I made money. Yeah, exactly. And I didn't have to pay for it. So yeah, like, it didn't, I was like, you are noobs. You people don't know. You have no idea. The town I grew up in was called Cloverdale. Okay. So you can picture what kind of people I was dealing with. And I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
They were peasants.
That's awesome. So you knew 100% what was your style. And once you dedicated that thought process to making it and wearing it, there was no going back. And it didn't matter what anybody else said.
Right. I fully owned it. And I'm actually really proud of high school me. You know, I had a lot of, when it came to that, I had a lot of self-confidence. Like I don't think of myself as a person with good self-esteem at all. And I never did. But when it came to that, I did. Yeah. That was like the one thing that I totally owned, and I totally knew that I could do. Yeah.
That is awesome. And so when things like cosplaying or Halloween come around, that's even more of an opportunity for you to practice and shine.
Right. Halloween was huge in my house. Yeah. Because my mom sews. And it's interesting because I have asked her since I started cosplaying, do you have pictures of me in my Halloween costumes? And she doesn't, because she had 4 children and she sews. And so she was always, my dad was making the craft dinner on the stove and getting us in our costumes while my mom was still shackled to the sewing machine, finishing somebody's costume or whatever. So she's like, I was always busy making your costumes. I didn't have time to take pictures. And my dad just never thought about it, probably because he's my dad and that's just kind of how he is. So
it was a time when he had to pay for the pictures.
Right. Exactly. But we weren't one of those people that needed to commemorate every occasion. And so my mom made me this amazing Wonder Woman costume when I was like 5.
Oh, that would be so cool right now.
And I'm just like, don't you have that? I mean, I had these red rubber boots that she had painted the white on, and then I had these little blue shorts that she had made stars out of white felt and sewn them on the shorts, and then she'd taken a t-shirt and made it into a tank top, and then out of yellow felt, like she drew the eagle symbol and sewed it on the front, and she made out of felt the bracelets, of submission, and she made me a little tiara out of felt, like a little hairband, and then I wore one of her 70s Charlie's Angels big brown wigs, and I mean the wig was as big as my torso, it was huge on me, but it was perfect for Wonder Woman, and I still to this day remember that costume and how amazing I felt in it, how legit it was. And so, like I said, I'm from Canada, and where I'm from, it pours rain every Halloween, so you're always prepared to like wear your snowsuit underneath your costume, or at least be able to waterproof it. But this was for like our church Halloween party, and so it was inside, so I was able to wear this tank top, and so I didn't have to weatherproof my costume. And it was, I think that year I probably had 2 costumes because of that. But oh my gosh, I'm like, why don't I have any pictures of that? I don't have proof.
And now it's so easy to document that. So what would you say has been more fun, creating the costume and coming up with the ideas, or being that character?
That's too hard of a question. Sorry. I don't,
because you pick the characters that you choose.
I would say making it, because I make costumes for other people as well, and I get just as much joy out of doing that as I do for myself. And I mean, there's certain costumes that I've worn where I don't feel comfortable because I'm not happy with the quality of my work, and I just want to rip it apart, and I don't even want to wear it because it's such a piece of garbage. And then people tell me how amazing I look, and I'm like, okay, whatever. You guys don't know anything. You can't see the inside.
But that's all artists. All artists feel that way,
I guess. And that's the thing with making costumes for other people, is it's like twice as much stress and anxiety for me. Because I am such a perfectionist, and I want to give a quality product to my client, and they can see the inside. On my costume, I can see the inside. I don't care. I know what it looks like, and it's fine. But when I'm doing it for someone else, then it needs to be done perfectly, which is why I have resorted to Google certain techniques and how to perfect certain types of hems and different zipper insertion, or working with a certain type of fabric. Like I with the Princess Leia costume, I was working with Georgette on the bias and the way it frayed and all this different stuff, and just working with, I could totally go down a nerd hole with talking about techniques. You're like, yeah, that doesn't sound like English, Kelly.
Well, but that's fantastic, because you get some joy out of being that person, but almost more from helping somebody experience that.
Yes. So like with my friend with the Holdo, seeing her in that costume gives me so much joy, because she loves it and she's happy with it, and she's taken that blood dress and that stupid drape, sorry, and just made it into magic, because she's filled that dress with the character and with the accessories and all the styling that goes along with it. And my friend that I made the Princess Leia costume for, same thing. you know, she's put on the accessories and the wig, and she's animated that dress. It looks great on a hanger, looks nice on a form. That's fine, all fine and good. But when the person fills it and brings it to life, that's just a beautiful thing for me.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like that about myself.
Yeah.
So when I'm dressed up, for me, the greatest joy I get is first of all, when someone's excited when they see a character that they like. I cosplay as She-Hulk, and she's not a very well-known character, but when people know who she is, they're so excited. She-Hulk! I never see She-Hulk! Oh! And then the knee hugs from the little kids. Because my number one favorite character is Supergirl, and so she's my favorite costume, and just little girls that are just so excited to see Supergirl. Yeah,
because the comic book superhero realm is typically dominated by guys.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that everybody who consumes it is a guy.
No, and it's changed a lot in the last few years for sure, and girls are a lot more. There are not only are girls more interested in it, but I think probably they go hand in hand, but there are more resources for girls.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, I didn't know anything about Marvel Comics because DC had Supergirl and Wonder Woman and Batgirl, and that's my trinity right there. And Marvel didn't have anything like that. Like, I knew who Iron Man was, and I knew who Captain America was, and I knew who Thor was. But then, of course, I grew up in Canada, so Captain America, who cares? But it wasn't until the first Avenger came out that I love Captain America now. But when I was growing up, he was just a blip. And the comics that I read were Archie comics.
Yeah.
So not so much superheroes, but, you know, I watched the Super Friends on TV. And like I said, Wonder Woman. I mean, I watched that Linda Carter show.
Yeah.
I loved it. Wonder Woman was my number one. I just, oh my gosh. And then watching Batman with my dad, and oh, there's a Batgirl. Ooh, that's so cool. And learning about Barbara Gordon and all of that. And then, wait a minute, Superman? There's a girl Superman? Yeah. Like, so that's kind of where I went. And I find that little girls have a lot more options that way. And there's the DC Superhero Girls that is totally marketed towards, you know, 7 through 12-year-old girls. They have a YouTube channel, and so they have animation, they have books, they have dolls, they have the costumes and everything. So
that's awesome. We haven't really talked about the princess side.
Yeah.
Do you relate less to those?
I just am not a princessy person. So I have one quote unquote princess costume. It's Alice in Wonderland, because she speaks to me.
Okay.
And so I have two sides to the princesses. So Cinderella is my princess, and I've always loved her. And I just don't feel like I could do her justice. So I would, but Merida is another princess that I love. I'm from Scottish heritage.
Yeah.
And so she's a princess that I would absolutely do.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'd have to like practice for 100 years to get the brogue down.
Right.
But, other than that, and the bouncy wig is just fantastic.
Yeah.
I've done the Wreck-It Ralph version of her with the shorts and the plaid shirt, and just jumping around in that wig is just my favorite thing to do. But I'm terrified of getting it tangled.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not just not a floofy person.
Yeah.
And so I've branched out. I would make one for someone else, but yeah, so I'm the same way with Wonder Woman. I love Wonder Woman. She's amazing. She's my girl. But I don't feel like I could do her justice.
Yeah.
But Supergirl is me. Like, that's who I am.
Yeah.
She's unapologetically good. She's a Girl Scout.
Yeah.
And I was a blonde little girl, and she's blonde, and so that just did it for me. Princess Leia. She's on another level.
Yeah. I
couldn't do her justice, but Admiral Holdo, that's me.
Yeah.
She's weird. She's purple hair.
That's cool that you've made that connection, that there are definitely characters that are you. And I think that's probably why so many people like comic books just in general, is because they can connect to some experience or some representation of that character.
Yes.
how did you get connected with Heroic?
So when my youngest son was 3, he was diagnosed with cancer. Mm-hmm. And my husband's cousin nominated him to be a Wish kid for Make-A-Wish.
Yeah.
And so he was able to have his wish granted. We went to Florida and to all the parks there. That was his wish. He wanted to meet Herbie. And so they made him a little racing suit and he got to take a race. So he drove around Autopia and all of that. So so we became involved with Make-A-Wish that way. And as part of that, then you're invited to all of the Wish family gatherings. Yeah. So they do a rubber ducky derby and they do an Easter egg hunt and things like that. And so we would go to these events and there would be these costumed characters, mostly from the 501st Legion or from the Rebel Alliance. Those are the Star Wars, Lucasfilm blessed costume charity groups. Yeah. So I saw that and I've already been a freak for Halloween my entire life. I have next year's Halloween costume planned on October 30th of this year. You know what I mean? I know what I'm going to do for 3 years in advance sometimes. And now it's worse. I mean, it's like on speed. Yeah. But because now I can make costumes all year round. Like I don't have to wait for Halloween. Yeah. So actually now I'm like, I don't know what to wear on Halloween.
Too many options.
Well, because I don't want to wear something that I wear all the time. Sure. So I want to make something unique. And but Comic-Con just ended. And so I'm just like, I'm burned out. Right. Yeah. So, but I found in the past couple of years, I've started wearing more Halloween-y type costumes, whereas before I wouldn't have done that. Yeah. Anyway, so I saw them and I was like, okay, when my life calms down, I'm going to do that. Yeah. This is going to be a way to give back using my talent for good. Yeah. And so getting into the 501st is really hard. And a lot of their costumes are armor and helmets and things like that. And that's not in my ballpark. Yeah. So
what do you think that did? Sorry to interrupt. What do you think seeing those characters did for your son at that time when he was 3? I mean, 3 is hard to
He didn't really care. Yeah. My older son did because he's a big Star Wars nerd. Okay. And he loves Mandalorians and there was a Boba Fett. And so he thought that was really cool. You know, so they're just there for entertainment and take pictures and things like that. So David wasn't too plussed about the whole thing, but my older son was, and I think it did more for me than anybody in my entire family.
I guess that's where I was going, is during a difficult time like cancer or any other serious life-threatening or life-changing situation, the things that give you hope or distract you a little bit are so worth why they're there. Yes,
and that definitely gave me some hope. Cool. And so 100%. And then I found out that there were groups that were superheroes and there were various different groups. It wasn't just Star Wars. And so at Comic-Con 2014, I picked up a card and cool. And then so I joined Heroic in December of 2015 and I haven't looked back.
That is neat. How many events do you think you do in a year?
So it depends. I was on the board for a couple of years, and so I felt more obligated, and so I was just gone just about every weekend. And but I try to keep myself to one a month. So 15 maybe, less than 20.
That's neat. It keeps it fresh in your mind why you're doing it, but it's not overkill, so you feel like you're there all the time.
It depends. Sometimes you get the FOMO because there are these really fun events that like there's a Down syndrome walk, a buddy walk that I really love to go to. And there's certain events that we do every year. There's the Millie's Princess Run. That's really, really fun. And we've done photo ops. There's an Up House in Harriman that we've done events at. And sometimes my schedule doesn't coincide. And I just, like, there was an event in Harriman yesterday. And I have quarantined myself. I see the cases going higher and higher. And I'm just like, okay, I'm going to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Yeah. And I had already done 3 events in the last 2 weeks. Yeah. And in August, I had an opportunity I was kind of starting to feel like, maybe it's time to stick my head out of my hidey hole. And I was missing being able to do events and things like that. And these were actually opportunities that were not heroic involved.
Yeah.
And I worked at the Boo Lights. They have some people that I know have a maze there, do a little maze, a Hogwarts maze. And so I helped them a couple of nights. And then another friend of mine had a little drive-through trick-or-treat. His mom had organized. And so I'd gone and done that. And I was like, okay, I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
And then this event came up and I was just crying. Like I saw the pictures today and I'm just like, oh.
Yeah. For those that might be listening in a different time period from where we're recording, it's the middle of October in 2020. And the summer of COVID was interesting. People going up and down with where they're following, whether or not people should be wearing masks, whether or not we should be out in public. And right now we're seeing a spike in cases everywhere, and schools in session and colleges in session, and people are trying to get back to work. And I don't know if we're just tired of it all. So there's some spike. And that's what you're referring to with this fear of missing out. There's things that are happening, especially with any kind of immune compromised group or any lots of people at an event, the chances of becoming a problem just go up the more that you're out there in public.
Yeah. And I mean, I always wear a mask and practice the physical distancing, and I'm always very safe. Having a child go through cancer treatment, you learn the hand washing protocols and the mask wearing protocols, and those are just like part of your life. And so it's kind of being funny because we know what we're doing when it comes to, we're kind of specialists when it comes to mask wearing and hand washing, and also of isolating ourselves and that sort of thing. But like I said, I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And so the more that I can not share any of my germs, whether I know I have it or not, is being a better person. And also David is getting ready to have some surgery. And so I don't want to have any possibility of having he had to be COVID tested before he went, and his surgery is actually being rescheduled because someone on the surgery team got COVID. And so I'm just trying to be as safe as possible right now.
Makes sense. So it's been a journey, learning things, challenging yourself, feeling down about it, but knowing that you can do it, having people ask you to do things that you feel like you can do it, but then in the middle of it, you're sort of like, what am I doing?
What have I done?
It's a big process. Where I know that you're working a job, a full-time thing other than the sewing and commissions that you're getting from other people. What would it take for you to be able to just do costuming? I mean, I know that you've thought about doing that.
I have.
But you need to have clients. You need to have people that want.
And time. So I just don't know. I mean, I've toyed with lots of ideas of having an Etsy shop maybe and doing different things. And it's just, for my mental health, it's too much.
Yeah.
To work full time, be a mom.
Yeah.
And so the timing in my life has not been the greatest. And I have one son that's going off to college, so and another he's a sophomore, so they don't need me nearly as much as they did before. I mean, I think I had a 10-year period in my life when I was raising my boys when they were babies that I never sewed.
Yeah.
I made my oldest son, I made his costumes up until I had my second son. And then it was Costume Planet or whatever, because they never, and they're not big into Halloween like I am, which is really disappointing, but they don't really care what their costumes look like. So they don't have that kind of, I used to on September 1st, I would be like, okay, this is the deadline. I need to know what you want to be for Halloween, so I have time to make your costume. Yeah. And they never cared. So in a couple of years, there were some good ones in there, but yeah. So for me to do it full time, I think I would need to be retired.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the brain space to multitask that much.
Yeah. So if you could make a living at producing costumes, the amount of brain power and planning and just the time that it would take to produce would be too much if you had the 40 50 hours a
Well,
week.
here's the thing. So you talk about what is the thing that you do that you don't even notice the passing of time.
Yeah.
And I can be in my sewing room from dawn until dusk and not even notice, not even see what's going on outside. Yes, I know that I've watched 2 seasons of Black Lightning, but I didn't even notice. Or I've watched Scott Pilgrim versus the World 3 times,
Yeah.
and that's 6 hours, but it's a blip to me.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's like this vortex, and I have other responsibilities in my life right now that I need to pay attention to. And so that's when I say brain space.
Yeah.
If I could every day, like, okay, I'm going to sew for 2 hours.
Yeah.
But I can't do that. It's just not part of my head. Like I just get in a groove and I just go.
Yeah.
And
Whatever the progress for the day is, that's what it was.
exactly. And I sometimes, a needle will break and all right, that's enough.
Yeah.
Or, I'll sew my finger, or I'll stab myself like one too many, or I'll burn myself on the iron, or I sewed the zipper on the wrong side, or I'll make a mistake that I'm like, okay, I'm starting to make mistakes, so I need to stop.
That's
When I was making I was making masks at the beginning of the COVID, and I sewed until 2:00 in the morning.
wow.
And I hadn't done that since I was in college. I was like, I have never sewed this far into the night. And I was so excited that I could still do it.
I guess that's I don't know if it's a relief, as I've been thinking about people who are not happy at work. And I don't mean to say that you're not, I don't know.
Oh, I love my job.
And it's kind of dark, so I can't really see your sarcasm there.
No.
But in my mind, I'm thinking if everybody could do what they loved and get paid to do it, the world would be awesome. But there also is that exhaustion factor. There's the I don't love it anymore because I have to do it all the time. That would take away from it. And that is an option. I guess people need to understand, and I need to understand, that not everybody is looking for a way out of work. Not everybody is looking for something that they can love and give to other people. And that's okay.
Yes, 100%. You need to know what your limitations are. And for me, it's all or nothing. Like if I can't 100% it, then I don't want to do it at that level. Like I'm happy with where I'm at right now. But to be honest, I would love to just be in the room of a costume department and sit there and work on hems or replace zippers or whatever, just have a piece of it. I would love to be in the room. I don't need to be the top dog.
Sure.
I don't need to be the number one person. There's no money in it at all, ever. So
nobody wants to pay the hourly rate for what it takes to make something.
Well, no, because I mean, I think I spent 200 hours on that holo dress, but half of it was me taking things apart because I made mistakes and it didn't work out or whatever. But that is also part of the process, especially if you're in a costume department and you're making original designs. That's part of the process, is making mistakes and the mock-ups and this isn't working, we have to use a different material, that sort of thing. So there's that. So I don't have to be the one that's making costumes 100% of the time.
Yeah.
But in order to feed my family and things like that, I can't do that. So I'm kind of waiting for my oldest to graduate from high school, and then we'll see where we go from there. My husband also requires a lot of attention sometimes.
We do sometimes.
Well, he likes me, dummy. But so I'm just so obsessive with the creative process that it's hard for me to turn it off.
Yeah.
And so I just know my limitations there. There's a movie called Hope Floats, and one of the characters is an architect, and he had left this small town in Texas to go work for this huge firm in LA, and he left it. And the comment that he made was, people talk about how do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, except in order to make a living at what you love, you have to twist it and shove it and squeeze it and make it into this thing that you don't want it to be.
Yeah.
And so that really resonated with me because I had been frustrated with myself. I went to fashion college. I never worked in fashion. Like, what's wrong with me? I know how to do all these things. I never had the confidence to go out and get a job in fashion. I didn't know what I was doing. I needed a mentor, hardcore, and I didn't have one. And I had all these doubts about myself, and I needed to make money. And so I went into office work and different things. I had beaten myself up about that for a long time, for never working in fashion, never working in clothing. And then as I got more into costuming of not doing that, and why don't I do that? And I need to have this creative job or whatever. But that really resonated with me, was that, you know what? It's true. Like, when I have done projects for other people, I've hated it sometimes. Yeah. And this was when I was younger, but since then I've learned a lot, and it's just been such a learning journey for me still. I'll be in my 50s and I'll still be learning things, and 70s and 90s and 100s. But yeah, so for me, I'm really aware of what my limitations are right now.
Yeah.
And so I do enjoy it, and I do it for myself. This quarantine time, I've had a lot more time to finish projects that I've started a long time ago. And so two of the things that I've completed since quarantine happened were just sitting in a bin. I didn't have to go buy anything. I already had all these supplies, and I have 2 more costumes that I can do, that I can finish, that I don't have to go to the store once.
That is cool. It has been an interesting experience knowing that you have time to do things now. When it comes to the things that you've created, mostly it sounds like it's superhero things or connected to movies, and whether or not they're superhero related, that could be Star Wars or some Disney things. Do you have an idea of how many you've produced, how many costumes you've produced?
Nope.
No count.
That I actively wear for heroic, I think I have 10.
Okay, so 10 superheroes / maybe the Alice in Wonderland.
And I have a Catwoman and some various ones that I have in regular rotation. But then I've made some fun, like I made a girl version of Robin.
That's cool.
Batman and Robin. And I did that for a Cub Scout Arrow of Light ceremony. Yeah. And just because the kid's obsession was Robin, and I was like, sweet, I love Robin too. So I just made a Robin costume. And so I've done some things like that that I've worn one time, and they just sit.
Yeah.
We, one of my friends put together a group for the Muses from Hercules. Mm-hmm. And I'd always wanted to do the one in the middle with the big spiral curls. Yeah. And so I wore these 4-inch platform sandals, and I was 6 feet tall without the wig. And so the wig made me like 7 feet tall. And I've worn, and we had such a good time. And, cause it was all 5 of us. Yeah. And we had a Meg that was there as well. That's but cool. Even like we had a bunch of Wonder Womans come up to us and be like, hey, you're a Greek goddess. I'm a Greek goddess, That's cool. And some Herculeses had come up and taken pictures with us, and some Hadeses and all of that. And it was so fun, but I've worn it one time.
Yeah.
And we were going to do a photo shoot up at City Creek Park, no, further up. What's that called? Can't remember.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of Greek columns that are up there, and they have some Parthenon-y looking.
Yeah, I can't remember what the park is called.
I know. 10
in regular rotation, that's cool. Are there any that you haven't done, but that you're sort of like, I need to do this, but I don't know how or when?
Yes. I have a huge list, but it's not that I don't know how or when. It's just that I've kind of prioritized, made priorities.
What I want to do right.
So I decided that I need to finish all the bins that I have now, the work in progresses that I have now. I like to, so I'm not, because it costs me probably around $200 to $300 a costume. Mm-hmm. That's wigs, shoes, makeup, fabric, all of that. And so I like to buy in pieces. Mm-hmm. And so I'll have a bin, and I'll label it whatever, Catwoman. And then as I procure things, I'll spend $30 a month, and then they go in the bin, and then, depending on how long it takes me to make things.
That definitely helps the budget.
Yes, exactly. So I have There's a character from Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and her name's Envy Adams, and I'm obsessed with her. So that's one.
Cool.
And then there's a scene in Birds of Prey of Harley Quinn dressed in Marilyn Monroe's Gentlemen Prefer Blondes outfit. And I have been in love with Marilyn Monroe since I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big Harley Quinn fan because Harley Quinn and the Joker is not just it's just not a healthy relationship that I prefer to honor. I think she's funny and my friends that cosplay her do such a great job, and she's an interesting character. And I do love Margot Robbie's portrayal of her. And when she's emancipated from the Joker, she's amazing. Yeah. So that scene just spoke to me, and I was like, I have to make that costume. So I'm making that. Yeah. Cool. But those are my down the road ones. Yeah. And I want to finish that Holdo. I haven't finished her. Yeah. And I have a Queen of Hearts that I just need to finish because it's kind of my bane, I just
yeah. Why is this taking me so long? What is the problem?
I have to keep putting it down because I don't know, for some reason it just keeps derailing me. Yeah. So it's my mountain that I have to conquer.
Yeah. That's cool yeah. We all have something like that, I think, and sometimes it's too scary to go there.
But my dream, I think this is what you're trying to get at, is my dream, just if I had all the skills and all the time in the world, I have a design that I've been playing around in my head and gathering reference photos for a centaur. Ooh. And I would like to do the puppetry where it walks like a centaur and
that would be cool.
I want to do Celtic leather armor and the hair, do a big mohawk so it's like a mane, Yeah, I've got lots of cool visions for that.
What movie or story book, whatever, where does that come from for you?
I'm a Sagittarius. Okay. And I like centaurs. I think.
Well, the only thing that I could think of was either Harry Potter or the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yeah. So those sort of, and I've actually looked at the way they created the centaurs for the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, because they used certain puppetry techniques in order to get the legs to walk, and of course they use CGI and that sort of thing as well. But they did create.
Yeah. Somehow they do some things like that for Broadway.
Yeah.
So they should be able to.
Yeah. So I should be able to do it, but that's
a big one.
So much. That's not sewing at all. Yeah. What's wrong with you, Kelly? You know how to sew. Why do you want to do this crazy thing? But I don't know. It's just something in my head that I would really like to accomplish. And I think centaurs are cool. And so no, it's not really any sort of one reference other than my astrological sign.
And recognizing that massive challenge of sewing plus.
Oh, it would just be so cool.
Yeah. That's neat. So I think you have from my expert opinion, it sounds like you have a pretty healthy understanding of what it is that you like, how to do it, and making it happen. And I'm sure there have been conflicts, and you've talked about it some with insecurity and being down.
And anxiety.
Yeah, if it's going to work or not. How has your husband supported you in that? I mean, you mentioned one phone call where he wasn't very responsive. Does he recognize that it's good for you?
Yes. He also recognizes that it's something that takes attention away from him. Yeah. Which he does not like. Yeah. And so I've had to find balance there. But I think that's important. Yeah. I mean, he's the most important person in my life. Yeah. He doesn't like to dress up in costumes, so it's not something that we can do together. Sure. But he has recognized my talent, and he has seen the joy that it gives me. When I very first started doing events and things, I dressed up as Agent Carter quite a bit. And, she's kind of 40s pinup-y little bit, you know, she's cute, and she's one of his favorite costumes. He likes the way that I look in that costume. He likes my hair to be nice and curly, and I do the pin curls, and, you know, I'm legit.
Yeah.
She was my first cosplay Agent Carter, by the way. Oh my gosh, Agent Carter.
That's cool.
She's amazing. But from Captain America, for those of you muggles that don't know. But I remember coming home from an event and changing out of my costume, and him just kind of muttering to me, like, do you have a lot of guys come on to you when you're dressed up like that? And I was like, no. And he's like, really? And I said, no, never.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, people want to take pictures with me, but I've never had people be inappropriate with me. I don't know if it's because I'm tall and so I'm a little intimidating or what, because my friends have not had the same experience and not had the same fortune.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's probably because I'm not pretty enough or whatever, but that kind of eased him off a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I have a friend that he and I team up quite a bit, and he's a man, and Michael calls him my cosplay husband.
Yeah.
It took him a minute to realize that my relationship is completely platonic with him, and both ways.
Yeah.
You know, and so...
Michael, I didn't mean to call you out or anything, if you're listening to this.
But it's kind of been a learning curve with him as well, because I just recently started doing this. So it's not something that I've done our entire relationship.
Yeah, it's new.
And so it's something that takes me away from him, and it's not something that we can do together. And so it did take some time for the understanding of it, and you know, of course, creating the costume and the stress, and you know, he doesn't want me to have these negative emotions, but yeah, it's definitely been an opportunity for us to grow.
Yeah.
In understanding one another and supporting one another, and he does support me.
Yeah.
He just complains a lot too.
Yeah.
So
well, and I don't, again, not to call him out, but I know he has some activities that take him out too.
Yes.
And so there has to be some reciprocation there. You have to understand this is something that he enjoys. This is something that I enjoy, and we should be able to cooperate with each other.
Right, exactly. And I have tried to have him come to some cosplay events and conventions and things like that, and he doesn't enjoy them. And so when I've gone, but I always go to his events with him. And so one time I said to him, I said, you know how you feel right now? That's how I feel when I go to your events.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, okay. Like, it just kind of dawned on him, like, oh, okay. So
yeah.
Like, I guess he hadn't even really thought of it. And he and I are quite opposite. We're a yin and a yang type of deal. So we don't have a lot of common interests.
Yeah.
And it took me 23 years to get him to dress up with me for Halloween.
Yeah.
And it was because I was throwing out some of my old Supergirl wigs, and he put it on as a joke and came up to me, and I called him Kara, which is Supergirl's alter ego, because my husband wears Clark Kent style glasses, you know, so he looked like Kara Danvers, and his face just fell, and he was like, I'm Garth. And I went, oh, yes, you are! You look amazing! So
Wayne's World reference.
So he and I were Wayne and Garth for Halloween one year.
Awesome.
And it was actually to my friend, my cosplay husband. It was his his birthday's in October, and so he always has a Halloween party for his birthday party. Yeah. And so he actually dressed up for Eric, not for me.
That's fun.
And so he did that, and then my birthday was on cosplay karaoke night in December, and so he wore it to that, and
cool.
and he, I mean, he's 6'2". Everyone sees this big blonde dude walking in, you know, with the wig on, and I mean, everyone was Garth, Garth, and he was like, oh, okay, I kind of see how
the attention is,
because and no one even thought I was dressed up, which was like really disappointing, because Michael was getting all the attention. Yeah. And one of my friend's friends said to me, she's like, oh, I didn't even know you were dressed up until I saw your hat.
Yeah.
She's like, I thought that was just your hair. And I'm like, nope, I'm wearing a wig. So, and our karaoke song was Bohemian Rhapsody, of course. And, it was a fantastic time. And that's actually one of my favorite memories of our relationship was him wanting to do
Stretching
that. And
a little bit. Yeah.
So fun. Yeah.
That's cool. So for those that are listening, there's your free 5 minutes of couples therapy, what to do and what not to do. So knowing all of that and having experienced your hobby and your joy for pretty much as long as you can remember, what advice would you give to somebody who, whether they are just getting into something that they think they love, or whether they are maybe sort of in the same place that we are, where work is a priority, family's a priority, and I'm tired of watching fill in the blank movie or TV show to unwind. I need to do something else for me. What advice would you give them?
This moment in time is not forever. Everyone's life goes through seasons, and you have different seasons in your life where you have different priorities, and you're able to do different things for leisure activities.
Yeah.
You know, when I was single, I could sew all day and all night, and I had no obligations to anyone else.
Yeah.
Like I said, I went through about a 10-year period where I didn't make anything because I had babies, and they were my priority, and so I raised my boys.
Yeah.
And I had my family, and I had work and all of those other things. And once they were able to be more independent on their own, and Scout camp really helped.
Yeah.
Because they would go away for a week and I would stay home and sew the entire time. It was fantastic. I would go to Costco and get one of those big giganto mac and cheeses, and I would make it on Sunday and I would eat it for the rest of the week. And, you know, I'd go to work and I'd come home and I'd sew until...
That sounds like a dream.
It was, oh my gosh, it was amazing. And so even to this day, like, I value that alone time that I'm able to get to have breaks, but I didn't have that before when they were little. And so you have, and I talked about, you know, the time factor, and maybe when I'm retired, I'll have more time to do that, and to still be creative and still do those things. So yeah, this doesn't last for, this time in your life doesn't last forever, and you'll have other opportunities. But also on the other hand, if this is something that you want to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe you only work on something for an hour a week. Maybe you only participate in the thing that you want to do for a little bit right now.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't have the time for it, or maybe you don't have the funds for it. Maybe you don't have the experience for it, or whatever, you know, but do a little bit. Like on the podcast, other people have mentioned the 10,000 hours, and that really has resonated with me as well. And especially since I've had more time to devote to my craft. And like I said earlier, that, you know, my skill level has tripled in the last couple of years. And I've been sewing since I was 6 years old. Yeah. So that's 42 years, people. It's like compounded interest, right? The first bit of the investment matters, but it develops and matures as you continue. Correct. Don't give up. Yeah. But just do what you can now, and later you may have more opportunity. And I think even maybe to an extent that could include absorbing things from podcasts or YouTube videos or courses that you can take for free. Absolutely. That can continue to spur your mind and your interest in it without really having to dedicate a given amount of time. That could be washing dishes or while the kids are going to bed or whatever. And I'm not a fan of Facebook, but I have found Facebook groups to be really great. Yeah. I'm on a Black Widow cosplayers group and an Admiral Holdo cosplayers group and a Princess Leia cosplayers group. And so it's a very niche group, but you know, we share tips and techniques and resources and how to style this wig and how to do this makeup. Here's a tutorial on how to build this and that sort of thing. And so other people's experiences add to yours. So there are groups out there where you can, if you're a newbie, you can learn from people that have gone before. And that was invaluable to me when I was making this Holdo costume. There was a Holdo Facebook page. I was like, holy crap, like here's where you buy the fabric. Here's a pattern. Here, do this. And
all the research is done for you.
Here's some resources for you. And also the support. You know, you post your progress. Oh, that looks fantastic. Yeah. Well done. Or, you know, I've really hit a wall on this technique. Does anybody have any advice? Oh, you should do this. You should try that. Oh, yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So to me, that's my advice while you're honing your skills is find people that are like-minded and join up.
Yeah.
And you'll find your people. I lived in Utah for 20 years before I found my people. I never felt like I had any friends. Nobody really understood me. I started cosplaying and I was like, there's my people.
That is neat. That's so cool. That is good advice. Those Facebook groups are important. It's almost like a mentor.
Yes.
On demand.
It's like a support group. It's a support group.
Yeah. That is cool. Any big plans in the next year with any of this?
No.
Just continuing on.
Finishing things. Oh, well, we're actually going to, the room that I do all my creating in is an unfinished room. And so we're actually going to finish that room so that I can build shelves and have my setup the way I want it. So I can have my media where I have my movies that play or music or listen to podcasts or whatever while I work. And have my bulletin board with my work in progress stuff on there and all of that. So really that's the big project. It's not a specific costume, but it's totally related.
Well, yeah, it's definitely a part of what makes it work. And I think, and I don't know if we'll have a picture of it up on the notes to the podcast, but the space that you're working in doesn't have to be much. It can literally be a guest bathroom where things are stashed, or a back corner of a basement room, or anywhere, like the corner of your bedroom where you have your things that is dedicated to that. And however organized that is for you or whatever, that's important to have.
Yeah. And for me, the ability to not have to pack everything up when I'm done has been the greatest help.
Yeah.
To have that little corner. I mean, there was a time in my life where it was in my bedroom. I had my sewing machine next to my bed, and that's where it was because I had little kids and I had to be able to, you know, and I didn't have an extra bedroom. We lived in a 900 square foot condo.
Yeah.
And then when we built this house, we had this spare bedroom that our family was supposed to grow into, but our family never grew. So it's turned into an office / craft room.
Yeah.
For my husband and I, and so yeah, I'm very blessed to have that space, but
it's not all necessary.
It's not. You don't have to have the most beautiful studio,
massive windows, and
like I have a little corner in this unfinished basement where I have extension cords running everywhere, but one day it'll be pretty.
That's like my studio. Well, Kelly, it has been an amazing conversation today to talk about the thing that you love. And I'm glad that, well, there's lots of things that kind of point to this, but comic books aren't necessarily just for kids. And we're seeing that. They're becoming mainstream movies. They're becoming things that everybody does. And dressing up might have been seen in the past as something that's kiddish, but we can see with all of the different conventions that are going on and the different organizations in the States, different versions of what Comic-Con is, and the benefit, the charity that is happening with it. It is much more important, I think, than people give it credit for. So I appreciate you sharing that experience, that journey with us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone, for sharing this experience with me. I really appreciate you listening, and I hope that this somehow is driving you, is spurring you on to figure that out for yourself, that it's giving you the energy to do what you want to do, make space for that thing in your life so that you experience happiness. That is, I think, one of the big things that life is supposed to have. And sometimes we get really weighed down with the negative things that are happening in the world, in the news, in politics, in our neighborhoods. Lots of different things are going on, but we can have peace. We can have a little bit of time that we experience joy and creation. So thanks for joining us today. Thank you for joining me today on Own Your Good. I'd like to give a special thanks to Arches Audio. They are the ones that provided this awesome music. If you need anything for a project, I would go and check them out. They have a great selection of music and other services to help you with your creative projects. I hope that you found this valuable. If you enjoyed this episode and it did something for you, or you think somebody might benefit from it, please share this. It would mean a lot to me to help spread this positivity and this idea that people can change, improve, and ultimately own their good.